All right, class, settle down, settle down. We have a lot to cover today, and I need everyone to be focused. Miss Johnson's cheerful voice rang out, attempting to regain control of her energetic 7th grade students after their bustling return from lunch. The room was filled with the sounds of shuffling feet and the rustling of papers as the students gradually quieted down. Once the last echoes of excited chatter faded, a hand shot up from the back of the room. It was Sarah, one of the most inquisitive students in the class, always ready with a question or a thought-provoking comment.
Miss Johnson, we use the internet every day, but how did it all begin? How did something so vast and complex come into existence? Who actually invented the World Wide Web? And what was it like before we had it?
The question, posed by young Sarah, a bright-eyed girl with a thirst for knowledge, hung in the air, prompting thoughtful murmurs among her classmates. They had all grown up with the internet, but few had ever stopped to consider its origins. The room buzzed with curiosity as students whispered to each other, speculating about the answer. Some thought it was a recent invention, while others guessed it had been around for decades. Miss Johnson smiled, pleased to see their interest piqued. She walked to the front of the classroom, her mind racing with how best to explain the complex history of the internet in a way that would captivate her young audience. She knew this was a perfect teaching moment, one that could spark a deeper interest in technology and history. "Well, class," she began, "the story of the internet is a fascinating one. It all started with a need for better communication and sharing of information. Scientists and researchers wanted a way to connect their computers and share data quickly and efficiently." The students listened intently, some jotting down notes, others simply absorbing the information. Miss Johnson continued explaining how the early networks were developed and how they eventually evolved into the global system we use today. She showed them a picture of Tim Berners-Lee, the man credited with inventing the World Wide Web, and talked about his vision of a connected world. The students were amazed to learn about the humble beginnings of something they used every day. As the lesson came to an end, the classroom was abuzz with excitement. The students couldn't wait to go home and share what they had learned with their families. Sarah's question had opened up a whole new world of understanding for them. Miss Johnson looked around the room, proud of her students' enthusiasm and curiosity. She knew that moments like these were what made teaching so rewarding. The question had indeed arisen, and it had led to a wonderful journey of discovery. That's a fantastic question, Sarah. The story of the web's creation is truly fascinating and starts with a visionary named Tim Berners-Lee. The World Wide Web, or simply the web as we often call it, revolutionized the way we access and share information. Before its invention, the internet was a much more limited and fragmented place. It was invented by a brilliant British scientist named Tim Berners-Lee. He was working at CERN, the European Organization for Nuclear Research, when he came up with the idea. This all happened not so long ago, back in 1989. At that time, the internet existed, but it was a collection of separate, unconnected networks. Back then, computers were very different. They were bulky, slow, and not user-friendly. Most people didn't have personal computers at home, and those who did found them challenging to use. They weren't nearly as interconnected as they are today. The idea of a global network where you could easily access information from anywhere in the world was still a dream. Miss Johnson paced slowly in front of the chalkboard, her voice taking on the animated tone of a storyteller, captivating her audience. She explained how Berners-Lee's vision was to create a system that would allow scientists to share information easily. His proposal included the concept of hypertext, which is the foundation of the web. Hypertext allows users to click on links and navigate from one document to another seamlessly. Today we take this for granted, but back then, it was a revolutionary idea. It transformed the internet from a tool for a few researchers into a global phenomenon that touches every aspect of our lives. The students listened intently, their eyes wide with wonder. They realized that the web, something they use every day, was the result of one man's vision and determination. Tim Berners-Lee's contribution to the world has been immense, earning him numerous awards and recognition. His invention has connected people, ideas, and cultures in ways that were once unimaginable. As the lesson concluded, Miss Johnson encouraged her students to think about how they could contribute to the world, just like Tim Berners-Lee did. The web story is a reminder that one idea can change the world. Tim Berners-Lee was working at a prestigious research laboratory called CERN in Switzerland. Scientists at CERN, just like you students, were always working on fascinating projects, conducting experiments, and analyzing data. But there was a problem. Sharing information back then was a real challenge. Scientists relied on clunky systems and physical documents, making collaboration difficult and time-consuming. Miss Johnson tapped her finger on the chalkboard, emphasizing the crux of the issue. Tim realized there had to be a better way. He envisioned a system where information could be easily shared and accessed by anyone, anywhere in the world. He wanted to create a space where documents, images, and other types of information could be linked together, forming a vast web of knowledge. Miss Johnson's voice echoed with excitement, mirroring the groundbreaking nature of Tim Berners-Lee's vision. Section 5, HTML, the language of the web. To bring his vision to life, Tim Berners-Lee created HTML, which stands for Hypertext Markup Language. Think of HTML as, well, the language that web pages are written in, a secret code behind all the text, images, and links you see online. Just like we use the English alphabet to form words and sentences, HTML uses special codes called tags to structure and format content on a web page. Section 6, HTTP and URLs, finding your way. But creating web pages was only half the battle. Tim also needed a way for computers to communicate with each other and find these pages. That's where HTTP and URLs come in. HTTP, or Hypertext Transfer Protocol, is like the postal system of the web. It defines how messages are formatted and transmitted between your computer and web servers, those powerful machines that store websites. And how do you find a specific website? That's where URLs, or Uniform Resource Locators, come in handy. Just like your home address tells the mail carrier where to deliver your letters, a URL tells your web browser where to find a specific web page. So, thanks to Tim Berners-Lee's groundbreaking inventions, computers across the globe could now communicate and share information seamlessly, forming the very first version of the World Wide Web. At first, the web was primarily used by scientists and researchers like those at CERN, but it quickly gained popularity, spreading like wildfire across universities and research institutions worldwide. As more and more people gained access to computers and the internet, the web exploded with creativity and innovation. Websites popped up on every imaginable topic, connecting people and information in ways never before imagined. The bell chimed, signaling the end of class, but the story lingered in the air. The students, still buzzing with excitement, slowly gathered their belongings, their minds racing with the new knowledge they had just absorbed. Miss Johnson had taken her students on a journey through time, revealing the origins of a technology that had become an indispensable part of their lives. She had painted a vivid picture of the early days of the internet, a time when only a handful of scientists and researchers had access to this groundbreaking tool. The students were captivated by the stories of how these pioneers had to navigate a world without the instant connectivity they now took for granted. From its humble beginnings as a tool for scientists to share information, the World Wide Web had evolved into a global phenomenon, connecting billions of people and transforming the way we communicate, learn, work, and play. The students learned about the first message ever sent over the ARPANET, the precursor to the internet, and how it marked the beginning of a new era. They were fascinated by the stories of early internet servers, massive machines that took up entire rooms, and the scientists who worked tirelessly to bring their vision to life. Tim Berners-Lee's vision of a world where information is freely accessible to all had become a reality, revolutionizing the way we live, work, and interact with the world around us. Miss Johnson explained how Berners-Lee's invention of the World Wide Web had democratized information, making it possible for anyone with an internet connection to access a wealth of knowledge. The students were amazed to learn about the rapid growth of the internet, from a few thousand users in the early days to billions of people around the globe today. They discussed how the internet had changed their own lives, from the way they did their homework to how they stayed in touch with friends and family. The lesson ended, but the impact of what they had learned would stay with them, shaping their understanding of the world and their place in it.